For this practice, you'll need 2 blocks. We're going to come down onto the mat and place 1 block just beneath the shoulder blades, maybe on the medium level, or whatever makes sense for you today. And the second block will come right underneath the head. You can keep the feet flat on the floor if that feels good, or maybe extend the legs long. Today's practice is designed to help you with low blood pressure as we look at heart health. One of the things that we want to do for low blood pressure is to increase pressure in the head. And we also want to do poses that will help to stimulate the kidneys. An excellent series that we can do for increasing blood pressure is a Tibetan series, often called the Tibetan Rites. Just allow the body to get really heavy. Feel the open space of the chest, knowing that back bends are also good for increasing blood pressure. The 5 Tibetan rites are a form of Tibetan yoga that are over 2,000 years old. There are a lot of benefits of the Tibetan rites: better memory, enhanced sense of well-being, allegedly a slowing of the aging process, and also increasing low blood pressure. So these 5 Tibetan rites movements are quite simple. We're going to move through them today. The sequence is going to stretch and strengthen all of the muscles in the body, improving balance, warming the body. Traditionally, you would repeat each movement 21 times before moving on to the next. Today we'll do 10 reps each. And if this is something that resonates with you, you can work your way up to 21 repetitions of each movement. Take another big breath in right to the center of the heart. And as you exhale, roll over onto the right side, coming off of the blocks, using the left hand to support you. And press your way up to a comfortable seat. And before we move into the Tibetan rites, let's shift back for a few breaths in child's pose. And then tuck the toes, lift the hips, press back, downward facing dog. Exhale as you shift the hips back. And on an inhale, gently walk the feet up to the hands. Inhale, lift halfway, glance out, lengthen the spine. Exhale, forward fold, release. Inhale, circle the arms up to the sky as you stand to rise. And we'll step the left foot out so we're facing the long edge of the mat. So the first of the 5 Tibetan rites is twirling. Stand with your feet a little apart and the arms shoulder height, palms facing down. And then begin to spin in a clockwise direction. So as if you're standing on a clock. Try to keep the breath steady as you twirl. And know that speed is not important here. It's the clockwise direction. You don't want to go so quickly that you get dizzy and you lose your balance. And if you start to feel really dizzy, just stop spinning. And bring the palms together, look at the thumbs, and breathe deeply. With low blood pressure, we want to move a little slowly. So today we're going to do 10 twirls, but again, you'll work your way up to 21 of these if you incorporate this into your regular movement practice. Keep breathing. And after your 10th twirl, take a moment to pause and breathe. Palms come together. And then bend the knees, bring the sit bones down to the mat, and come to lie on the back on the floor with the palms down by the sides and the legs straight. We're going to move into leg raises, which is the second of the Tibetan Rites. Engage the low belly, and on an inhale, raise the legs in the air. At the same time, see if you might be able to lift your head. And if this feels like too much, you can keep the head grounded. As you exhale, lower everything back down to the floor. So we're going to do 9 more of these. Take an inhale, lift the legs, lift the head, engage the belly. Exhale, lower back down. Inhale, lift the legs, lift the head, engage the low belly. Exhale, release back down. Inhale, lift the head, lift the legs, engage the low belly. Exhale, release. And continue at your own pace until you've reached 10 repetitions. And if this feels like too much, remember you can always place the hands right underneath the sit bones, the sacrum. You can bend the knees to make this more accessible for you. You don't want to feel any pain in the back or in the neck. So give yourself whatever you need in the form of support to make this happen for you. And after the 10th repetition, hug the knees into the chest. And take a moment here. And then we're going to rock up to come to a kneeling position. Dynamic Camel, the third of the 5 Tibetan Rites. So come into a kneeling position, and as you inhale, slightly arch the back. Slide the hands down the back of the thighs, and tilt the head back just a little bit. And then exhale back to an upright position. Tip the chin forward towards the chest. We're going to do 10 of these. So on an inhale, arch the spine, slide the hands down the back of the thighs, reach the head back a bit, and then as you exhale, tuck the chin towards the chest, curl in on yourself. 8 more to go. And as you move through these, you want to keep the lower belly pulled in and up so that you're protecting the low back. Only drop the head back as much as it feels right for your body. And know that you can always have blankets or some type of cushion under the knees if that feels best. Keep moving with the breath. Inhaling back. Exhaling to curl in. And once you've reached 10, we're going to pause here. Sit back on the heels. Bring the hands to the heart. Take a breath. And we prepare to shift into the 4th of the 5 Tibetan Rites. So we're going to go into moving tabletop. So you'll come to a seated position with the legs stretched out in front of you, palms flat on the floor, Dandasana. And then breathe in, press into the hands and swing the hips forward and up so that you come into an upward tabletop posture with the feet flat on the floor. You can keep the chin pointing upwards or take the head back a little bit if that feels like the safe thing to do. As you exhale, swing the hips back down, returning to staff pose, your original posture as you exhale. So we're going to do 9 more of these, and we want to keep the movement as flowy and fluid as we can. On an inhale, press into the hands, bend the knees, bring the soles of the feet flat as you lift the hips up into a tabletop, making a choice that feels good with your neck. Exhale, begin to straighten the legs, lower the hips, coming back to your original posture. And we're going to continue with 8 more of these. So remember that the shoulders are not earrings, and we want to keep them away from the ears. Avoid that hunching motion. And know that you can also start from a bent knee position if that's better, or if you start to get tired, with the hips slightly forward from the hands as you build the strength in your arms. You could also put the hands onto blocks to give you a little bit more space if that feels good in your body. So keep moving with this. Moving with the breath, inhaling up, exhaling down. And once we've reached 10 repetitions, we'll pause in staff pose. Take a big inhale here. We're going to rock into tabletop and tuck the toes, lift the hips, come into downward facing dog for the 5th of the 5 Tibetan Rites. From downward dog, we're going to spread the fingers wide, press the palms into the floor, lift the thighs up and back, creating some length in the spine. As you inhale, roll over the toes, bring the shoulders over the wrists, and come into upward facing dog. Keep the neck long, keep the collarbones broad. And then as you exhale, press firmly into your hands and shift the hips back up, returning to a downward facing dog. And we're going to do this 9 more times. So as you flow between downward facing dog and upward facing dog, you want to keep the lower belly slightly engaged to protect the back. And if it feels like a challenge to keep the legs straight, you can bend the knees. And I really like moving with the breath. So I typically inhale into upward facing dog and exhale back into downward facing dog. And remember that with these 5 Tibetan rites, traditionally you do 21 repetitions of each of these 5 movements. And today we're going for 10. If 10 feels like too much for you and you need to pause maybe at 5 or 4 or even 2, it's okay. And if 10 isn't enough and you've got it in you to keep going, keep going. But we want to work up to 21, and this is really helpful for increasing low blood pressure. And after you've repeated 10 of these, drop down on the knees. Take a quick child's pose. And as you're ready, come up into tabletop, crawl the knees towards the hands, cross the ankles, roll back onto your sit bones. Come to lie on the back. Maybe give yourself a little goodbye hug, a goodbye squeeze. And then shift back into Shavasana. So for low blood pressure, you want to avoid quick changes of pressure in the head. So quick movements going from supine postures quickly into seated poses quickly or sitting to standing too quickly. All of that is something you want to avoid. And you want to embrace anything that's going to stimulate the kidneys, anything that increases pressure to the head. Poses that are inverted can be beneficial. Back bends stimulate the kidneys. Twists stimulate the kidneys. Compression breath. So just relax and absorb the benefits of this practice today. Stay here for as long as you'd like.